first set of Week 5 here in EU. And as we said, this game's so important for him. In particular, like I said, I'm sure Cheerio wants to get to land, be on the lowest ping possible for him. He's not used to it over there in Egypt. But right now, we got some pretty, well, maybe not so standard. Athena, the first ban here by Valence, that might be sort of a nod towards Elevate.
That's just a pure respect ban right there. Not wanting to have to deal with Cheerio's Athena jungle, I would say. He's notorious for taking those tankier picks and moving them into the jungle role, so not having to worry about that, I think, is a very smart decision. The same thing for the Sylvanas. You don't want to allow Dardas to have a support that he's shown to be proficient on.
And this is an example of not banning the meta. This is banning out your opponent, specifically trying to do that. And Valence, they know they need these points today, so they're trying to shut Elevate down any way that they can, and they go ahead and pick up that Ratatosker to give them a high-pressure jungle.
And I actually really like the Ratatosker just because it's going to have that half global presence to be provided, can kind of control a little bit more the team fights whenever those start breaking out. But the response by Elevate with that Hu Yi and Raijin selection, I really love this. A lot of clear already in the middle and duo lanes. Really interested to see what Elevate try to pair this off with.
I like this too. When you pick Hu Yi, that frees you up to do that alone in the duo lane starts that we've seen a lot more from our hunters lately because his jungle clear is just so good. He can start over there and secure his own buffs. And then Osiris and Fafnir picked out, so they ban away a couple tanks and then they pick up a couple.
I wouldn't be opposed to maybe an Amir selection for Dardas as well for Elevate. They're going to lock away that Nemesis instead.
That makes Amir better.
Smart choice. It's a really smart choice here by Elevate, considering that Valence is already drafted fairly tanky, that Ratatosker having some flexibility to build a bit more bruiser-oriented like we've seen from members such as Captain Twig. I wouldn't be surprised to see an Ankile Mystical Male Ratatasker fusion coming out.
And Elevate turning an eye towards Lobster, that mid lane for Valence, by banning out the Soul and the Hebo, trying to limit some of those big magic damage options since they've already secured the Raijin on their side. Picks like Scylla still available, so he's got some options as Bellona's locked in for Elevate. And Thoth, of course.
And yeah, I think the Thoth selection is actually pretty interesting because so far there is a decent bit of setup right now between Fafnir's Hammerstone and the Ratatasker ultimate. Oh, wow. And it's just a little bit of the early game pressure that I would be concerned of for Valence. But with that Scotty being picked up, I think that also kind of takes care of that issue. Yeah,
Scotty won't be struggling at all over there. So I mean that's good if you're in a situation where maybe you want to make sure you got pressure and that's in the duo lane. That'll do it for you with a Scotty. So good pick, and it is Amir on Dardas. So that was a good call with that one too.
Just got to know, you get to learn Dardas after a little bit, and that was just one of those hunches I kind of felt like this draft was leaning towards, and especially with the Thoth and the Scotty selections, it makes it even easier for the Amir to get those walls going, really start blocking off the members of Valence, have a little bit more spacing control for Elevate.
That's the difference between like a dash and a leap. That wall would cut off the dash and the escape option, at least through that path that it's blocking. And as you said, Elevate pick up the Nemesis too, who's an assassin that can give Amir a lot of troubles early since he's so immobile. All those slows stacking up really hurt him a lot. So he should have an easier time on that Amir now.
A little bit concerning though, because big man tings can cause quite a few problems for Dardas as well. Since it is Fafnir versus Amir, big man's probably going to have one of the best ways to kind of heckle Dardas with now getting into any sort of real trouble. And speaking of which, Dardas is actually doing a great job representing that Ice Cream Amir skin.
I love that skin. It's one of the best ones in the game right now. Pick it up if you don't have it already. But Dardas is going to be looking to make things not so sweet for his opponents in this first game. Fails is hanging out, as is Ducky over in the duo, over in the solo side. And like we were thinking, Scotty and Hu Yi both are going to be starting alone in the duo lane because they got such high clear. They're going to be able to handle it no problem.
We've been seeing a lot of ADCs actually joining the mid laners in Europe, particularly, where they will go and help the mid laner secure that clear, look for a potential invade on farm. But this time around, it just Elevate and Valence choosing to put their advantages where they can find them. And for Hu Yi and Scotty, that's just leaving them to go at it 1v1.
That means that there's not going to be, well, actually there is no numbers in Cheerio heading over here now to try and see if they can get the invade on the blue buff since they started at the wave. Both of their buffs are up, and they push the wave under tower right away, and it looks like they are able to get it before a Valence squad can slow them down, but now can they escape?
No numbers, though. He should have his bludgeon up available pretty soon here. And with Dardas making the rotation, Ducky and Fails not looking to stick around much longer. Actually forced into that sprint just to get away from the bludgeon damage from Cheerio.
They had to use it, especially with Dardas, like, hulking down the lane at them. They didn't have a choice. So good thing that they used it. They were able to get out. They do drop the blue buff but the buffs are still available for Elevate on that side of the map, so there is a possibility if they want to go over there and try and invade, as Dardez and Death Panter come over to say hello at the red buff.
And Boss actually getting out cleared means that Funballer is just going to make that easy rotation, meeting up with Big Man and Lobster. And that's not too awful for Elevate just yet. In a way, I think that Elevate were kind of expecting this to occur with Scotty versus Hui. Scotty does have a little bit more favor towards the clear. Thankfully enough, though, for Elevate, it was only the red buff that was stripped away from them, so they'll still be able to get the farm off of their purple.
And it does bounce back out since they were able to at least secure the enemy blue on the other side. So it's just over here on this duo side where they're having a little bit of trouble as Fallen Baller does come up and just go ahead and get his own red buff now. Just add it on to the pile. Maybe drop that for his mid laner. Looks like that is going to be the call. So he'll let Lobster have that one too.
It's just one of those more veteran experiences that you kind of expect Fallen Baller to take the advantage. And Boss, he's not foreign to these players in the slightest. He's been around the scene for a while, more known for his time spent in this Challenger Cup area, but he's definitely still a pretty high-ranked player. He knows how to stalemate a lane, and I think that's going to be one of the most important parts, is kind of just biding his time until Elevate can start looking for those team fight rotations.
Yeah, I think as long as he makes sure that he doesn't let Funballer get too far ahead of them over there in the duo lane and start rotating and having a bigger impact than him, then he'll be okay coming out. Hui certainly going to be able to have impact with that big sun when he rains down the ultimate, as well as just his kit. It had so much penetration he's able to get with that mark of the Golden Crow when he places on you as well. So he's going to have a lot of options as long as he can stay close to Funballer and not let him snowball the lane.
I also feel as though this game is going to really put the pressure onto Cheerio and No Numbers to kind of step up and perform. No Numbers more so. Speaking of which, Darda is actually taking a little bit of poke out of that permafrost, but what I'm trying to say is that No Numbers has always been great at doing his job consistently and stepping and joining the team fights. But right now, without Jermaine, there needs to be a little bit more from the rest of the team, because Jermaine really does bring a lot of what they do together.
Fails was lurking over there in that Gold Fury pit. He is level 5, so he has that ultimate through the Cosmos available. He could easily gank over onto the lane, but I think he thought better of it after getting, you know, the information from Big Man Tings and Funballer that they just weren't far enough up. You know, everything was still available. Nothing could be baited out. So instead, he ends up backing off. But that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're up against a Ratatosker. If you're Dardez, Boss, even if you're No Numbers over here in solo, you could suddenly just have a rat in your lane.
Especially against being against a player like Fails, who will constantly be looking for that pressure gank advantage. It's just something that kind of suits his playstyle, and that's why I really like the Ratatasker selection for him, is because he can choose whether or not he wants to go utility or hyper carry, and he's probably going to lean a little bit more towards that hyper carry department.
And speaking of hyper carry, we see Death Panter choosing to go with that Book of Thoth rush. That's what we see a lot of the times now, but that means he's going to have a lot of early power coming out on that Raijin, maybe giving up a little bit of extra like sustain though in safety.
He is losing out on a little bit of mobility as well in comparison to Lobster, who actually built up the boots too first and foremost. He also has that Sands of Time and the Boomba, so a little bit more sustain from Lobster's end as well, and that's also held Valence a lot with trying to contest the Elevate's jungle as well as the global farm.
So we're just seeing just a little bit different mindset between our mid laners and when they want to start having their impact. Oracles going over here towards Valent's squad. They were able to get it first as Dardez had to back recently, so they just kind of had the numbers advantage on the map and they clean up that neutral objective. Valence actually have all the vision on that whole left-hand side. You can see I've got the ward, actually a sentry ward up there too, in that path between the jungle and the mid lane, as well as over in between the duo lane and the jungle.
It's just going to be a whole lot of action. I think the way it's going to be split is Fails will probably look for more aggression on the duo lane. Cheerio is going to be trying to put more emphasis onto solo lane and Ducky, because if Cheerio can get ahead alongside of No Numbers, then those two can start making the crucial rotations that Elevate's really going to need if they want to maintain the map pressure across the map.
And now Fails is crashing down on top of Boss. He drops the Suns, but it's just a little bit too late. First blood going the way of Valent Squadron on to the new guy.
And just like that, Fails already reminding Boss what it's like to come up to the competitive level,
That's
step
right.
even a slightest toe out of position, and you're going to become basically gank material.
And I think that comes down to the vision that we just were pointing out, Taco. They had vision control over there, none for Elevate. They didn't know where anyone was, and Boss ends up getting punished for it when he comes out into the jungle. As you said, not particularly out of position or anything like that.
It's just the slightest bit. That's all it takes is just a moment. And Fails, he's been around long enough now at competitive to just recognize what he can and can't get away with, especially being on this Ratataskor. It gives him that notion to just be able to push ahead. And having somebody like Funballer to follow you up is great. Cherio now trying to come over just for a little bit of that farm, maybe getting some assistance off with Boss, but Funballer not having any of it so far.
I like this. Cherio at least being where the enemy jungler is. Fails is putting some pressure onto Boss continued, and Cherio come over to try and alleviate it, but he takes way more poke than he bargained for in trade. So that's something he'll have to be a little bit mindful of, and he chooses to back. Funballer, though, he's here, he's looping around, gets down the permafrost. Cherio is able to run away, no problem, but they slow the back timing down.
Fortunately enough for Cherio, Funballer was actually off the mark with that first-hand ability, and that's going to actually buy him enough time. If Cherio is hit by that ability from Funballer, then there's no doubt in my mind Funballer's committing to that kill.
Yeah, I think Funballer goes in even harder, might even get a little bit more follow-up from Fails, too, who I think might have even had his ultimate backup in time for it, or maybe just now in the last few seconds, so certainly they would have tried, but able to get out is Cherio. Nemesis is pretty safe over there as the jungler. And now we're taking back a look at the mid lane. Taco, with these two teams, they seem pretty even to me. Do you think either one of these composition-wise would have an advantage moving into the mid and late game?
Probably a little bit more in favor for Valence, actually, as the game progresses, simply because of, even though Elevate has a really strong team fighting draft, since they have a little bit more AoE to use, and it's just that Valence has so much target burst potential between Fails and Lobster alone. That's already pretty much a guaranteed kill onto whoever they manage to connect their ultimates with.
I agree. We've seen Ratataskor in particular be a real good facilitator for the rest of his team. And that knock up the global pressure, just the man advantage you can get for your team coming up real big as once again Valence take away these oracles, and they're getting close to about 1,000 gold lead as Cherio takes a lot of pressure. It's actually Fails who has to go up into the ultimate through the Cosmos. He's hanging out in those branches, just trying to get out of danger, but as we said, Valence were able to establish just a bit of a lead here, just from that early first blood.
That damage from Death Panther, though, that was already a pretty significant chunk of Fails' health. I'm sure Ratataskor is not exactly a bruiser, so he's not going to be super tanky, but taking that much poke and actually enough to where he's forced to ult away, that goes to show that Elevate's draft can be a little bit scary.
But Cherio, I believe, did have to give up his beads in that engagement, too. We can see that they still have a little bit more time on them, about 120 seconds or so before he's able to use those again. So Fails was at least able to trade it out. It might even be in his favor if you consider the length of that cooldown. So just a little bit that they were able to pull away from Cherio. Still, though, the vision control on this side is going to be in control of Valence Squadron, and they're the ones who I'm looking to try and make that first big move.
Double sprints as well coming out from Valence as their team fighting relics. It shows that they're definitely a little bit concerned about the slows that Elevate has at their ability to use. It's just kind of annoying to deal with it. Dardes has a slow on the Amir ultimate. There's also the slow in the Suns from Boss, and no numbers can also just get in the way.
Yeah, they got a lot of slows. We do have a real quick pause just coming out here for you, so we're working on that. But as you said, those slows are going to be a real big problem coming out from Elevate. Valence Squadron recognize, and they go twice into the sprint. It does mean, though, they won't have as much of an option against some of that big burst damage like the shell that we do see Elevate picked up, so they won't have that to help counter a little bit.
It can be a little bit concerning, though, because it's not really something that Elevate has to worry about as much, or actually it's not something that Valence has to worry about as much as Elevate. Valence doesn't really need those shells because they're the ones who are going to be looking for that all in and get out.
That's right, with Lobster's big final judgment ultimate, he's really trying to look to delete someone off the map. Ducky continuing to give no numbers some pressure over here, but actually no numbers is the one that's established a bit of a lead with the Bellona into the Osiris.
And that's probably just no numbers focusing a little bit more on the wave clear as opposed to Ducky, who might have been looking for some more poke potential. It's one of those matchups where it really does just go either way. It all depends on how those two really just want to play it out.
That was a good stun for Big Man Teams. He could have been in a lot more trouble if he'd gotten walled or stunned there by Dardes. Instead, shutting him down and letting himself create a little bit more space. Cherio has to back after taking a good bit of his damage as well. Now, no numbers is the one in danger of getting stunned, but he breaks the tether and is able to get away.
No Numbers, though, just had to focus entirely on going in the opposite direction. Fails actually looking for some potential follow-up, recognizing how poked out Cheerio was. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Valence maybe look towards Elevate's buffs, but not really too certain on that timer. So instead, they're just going to play it safe.
And again, we're sitting here about 11 minutes into the game, and I want to make sure we talk about just how important this match is for both of these two teams, Taco. We talked about it on the desk earlier, but that's why we see them playing it maybe a little bit slower than we might be used to seeing from these two squads in particular. This is a spot at Super Regionals that's on the line.
Well, considering that Boss has already taken an early spill, Elevate kind of need to slow down the pacing of this game. They don't really want to allow Valence to establish how quickly this one is being played out, because then they might find themselves at a bit of a disadvantage. Speaking of which, Fails avoiding that freeze from Dardes by going into the Ratatasker ultimate, but that's a pretty big team fighting ult that just got expended.
Elevate can breathe easy for about a little bit over a minute now, knowing they don't have to worry about that through the Cosmos. Gives them a little bit of chance, a little bit of time to maybe move up a little bit further in their respective jungles without having to worry about them crashing down on top of them. But we were talking a little bit earlier about these builds between our two mid laners. Lobster, is he looking to go into the Book of Thoth now and start building it a little bit later? I
would anticipate that that's exactly what his mentality is, kind of just focusing a little bit more on having that early mobility, especially since he knew he was against Dardes on Amir. Didn't really want to be trapped out by some early walls into freezes into death.
Giving himself just a little bit of extra mobility early. Will make him a little bit easier for him to survive. Now, trying to build into that damage, we often see a lot of pen coming after that too. Spear, Desolation, Obsidian Shard, likely going to be on the menu for our two mid laners. As again, Dardes and Death Pan are hanging around. Big Man Tings knows they're there though, so he's not going to move too far out of position, but it looks like we might be getting our first Gold Fury dance here.
There really is just so much vision control coming out from Valence. Boss does have a ward placed down on top of that Gold Fury that Valence is unaware of, but everywhere else, all of the aggressive checkpoints around the map that you would want to try and venture through are completely controlled by Valence's vision.
And we talked a little bit earlier about how No Numbers had built a bit of a lead there over Ducky. Like you said, he might be having a little more focus on farming. That's something that's not going to be too big of an impact if we do see one of those Gold Fury fights. Our solo laners are both hanging back over on their respective sides, not looking to come in. So instead, it's going to be very reliant on that 4v4, where we see Big Man Tings a little bit ahead of Dardes. See Funballer a little bit ahead of Boss, which could come in favor for him.
You have to keep in mind, though, that we could see some potential solo lane rotations very early on. It's only about 13 minutes. Dardes with a great wall there separating himself and Cheerio from Big Man Tings. And right now, Boz also just trying to play it safe. He doesn't have quite enough stacks in his Devourer's Gauntlet yet to really get that power spike online. So the sustain that you would ideally want isn't really coming up into play just yet.
And Valence are signaling that they don't really want to try and force the objective just now. They were pulling it. They actually had Elevate kind of forced a little bit back. And instead, they end up dropping it, trying to pull off the kill. And like you said, Dardos does use an excellent wall to separate himself from the enemy team. But they dropped the objective. They're not looking to try and force that. They want to try and force a fight.
Boss is really just doing his best to try and hold his own. And so far, so good. The only death he's had is come at the expense of a gank. And Ducky actually just getting completely away for free on that speed buff invade.
Yeah, Ducky able to take that speed buff away. He does have to use that Lord of the Afterlife to get up over the wall, but I'm sure he's happy to make that trade as he's not looking to really be a part of any big team fights in the next minute or so. But Elevate look like they want to try and get some vision going here at the Gold Fury, but they're not looking to get started up just yet. You can see Death Panner and Dardes moving a little bit back away, and instead trying to play it slow. Make sure they get their sub to a position where he's comfortable playing.
Objective control is certainly in favor of Valence as long as
Funballer
Lobster
might
is
be in
alive.
trouble over here on the left side. Cheerio going in aggressive on him. He's very low, but not able to get anything up. The ricochet from Boss! Whoa, sub no longer. He comes in looking good, taking down Funballer.
Oh, that is absolutely tragic for Funballer. With him being dead for at least 30 seconds, that is an immediate pull onto the Gold Fury.
What
right
a
now,
shot.
the rest of Valence trying to make the rotation. Fails, already up in the air, going into that through the Cosmos, trying to find the gank. He's going to actually land down on No Numbers, who's making the rotation over.
He does keep No Numbers away from the fight, but Elevate are going to try and continue to pull this Gold Fury. Funballer's still out for another 12 seconds after a big ricochet on that last engagement. Ducky does take the tier 1 on the right-hand side, and Elevate take the Gold Fury.
It's going to be No Numbers just trying to get away, barely staying alive away from Lobster's ultimate. That final judgment just unable to clean him up, and Elevate had to commit to that Gold Fury because Ducky, we saw him just then split pushing that T1 solo lane tower.
And it was just a strong rotation from Elevate earlier. Yeah, Boss hit the highlight reel shot at the end, but it's because Cheerio put so much pressure onto Funballer earlier on. He was able to find that follow-up damage. Elevate immediately go back to the Gold Fury, and now they've got this game back evened up. But I do want to point out, I mean, Valiant Squadron do still have a bit of a lead. They were at least a Gold Fury ahead just from First Blood and superior farming.
But Elevate being able to take away that first Gold Fury at least means that they'll still be in the running against Valence, as opposed to just letting them kind of slow bleed out this gold lead that they were starting to establish, as well as an experience lead. They were actually starting to get a decent ways ahead, and now Valence trying to bring it back in for themselves, aggressing straight onto that Portal Demon.
Death Panthers here doesn't have the Tycho drums available, but No Numbers comes in as well. Fails goes over to zone him away. Ducky is here along with Big Man Tings and the damage from Lobster, bringing him very low. The body blocks were good to keep him from shield bashing. There's the Lord of the Afterlife over the top, and now the Thorns are ticking to slow down any return damage. Death Panther up into the air, pounding on the drums, but it's not enough. Lobster cleans him up. Thorn trying to keep him alive against the damage from Dardez, and he is able to escape from that at least.
And Dardez actually trying to wall Fails off, recognizing how low the Ratatasker is. He kind of is thinking about re-engaging, but instead, Valence going to drop the Portal Demon and look to reset off of it. Elevate just a little bit too healthy, still able to contest, not really making Valence feel comfortable enough, despite Death Panther already being dead.
And Death Panther falling there it's pretty tough for Elevate. He was already going into a little bit more of a defensive mindset build, so for that to not be able to pay off for him in that last engagement is going to hurt. But Taco, I mean, I've been wanting to talk about you. I mean, Boss gets that hot kill over there in the duo lane. How big is that for a sub coming into play for a game this important?
That's massive, because he's also doing it up against Funballer, and yeah. Funballer is definitely a top-tier ADC, so it's not so much even a team morale boost as much as it is just him being able to build up confidence for himself. Sometimes, even when subs are able to step up into the spotlight, they can still be a little bit shaky, have the nerves coming into play, even if you've been around these guys for a long time, and that right there is the kind of plays that Boss needs to keep making if Elevate want to walk away with at least one of these games.
Boss looking good, at least early on, but Elevate doing a good job of keeping things close. Blink in from Dardez, gets the freeze off on the Fails, who has to sit through the entire duration, no way to cleanse it. Death Panther, or rather Lobster's charging the ultimate up to the air, Fails, who lands down on Dardez in the back. He gets taken down. Now it's Death Panther trying to stay alive, but he gets mezzed in the middle, trying to dash out. The stun from Big Man Tings was too good. Cheerio falls as well. 3 quick kills for Valence in the middle lane.
Complete clockwork, and that just looked like a great and well-executed gank/rotation out of Valence. And now with 3 members being dead from Elevate, there's no way anybody tries to contest, and sure enough, that Portal Demon's already gone, even if they were thinking about it.
And this is one of those situations, Taco, where it's not as if, you know, Valence built up a big lead or something like that, and then they go get the objectives. They just kind of caught Fails out with a blink in mid lane, win the team fight on the back of it, and now they're trying to go for a 19-minute Fire Giant. No one's around. They recognize Ducky is on top of No Numbers, keeping him away as well. They've got the damage. They can burn this down. No Numbers looking to come in for the cheeky steal. He's just a little bit off. Valence Squadron do secure it, and now No Numbers pays with it for his life. 6-1 are the kills, and now Valence Squadron are in control.
It was worth the attempt, and yeah. I can't fault No Numbers for going for it. With so much being on the line for Elevate, that's just one of the plays that you kind of have to sacrifice yourself for. Now, though, Elevate's well aware that Valence has that Fire Giant around themselves, and so sure enough, they're just trying to get the groupings to respond to Valence's tower siege that's going to be coming up next.
And it really feels like all this came down to was just that one engagement in middle lane that goes Valence's favor, and they take Portal Demon and Fire Giant off the back of it. That's what we see from these veteran teams. They take that little bit you give them, and they get a mile.
The problem here for Elevate is that they had that one moment against a Funballer, and those are kind of just the plays that they needed to keep looking for. They can't really afford to try and take up the team fights, because the second that they enter the team fights, it seems a little bit disjointed from Elevate. A couple of the members just always seem to be separating off into the back line, and that's just opening up so many different opportunities for Fails to go up into that Ratatasker ultimate through the Cosmos and just jump down onto anyone.
Now the rest of Elevate looking to do what they can to slow down Valence, who are thinking about trying to force this tier 2 tower down in mid. They still don't have a minion wave with them, so they might back off for now, or at least wait until it catches back up with them. But this 5v5 fight, this is where Elevate have to show up and try and slow down some of this bleeding from Valent Squadron.
I don't see Valence really looking for the Phoenix, but I do see them looking for the team fight. Ducky already jumping into the mix of everybody, getting targeted out pretty heavily here, able to walk through those mirror walls though. And Lobster actually with a huge final judgment, taking out half the boss's HP.
Lobster hit multiple members of that final judgment, and after that, Elevate had no way to continue to contest. Fail's gonna come steal this speed buff. They're coming back on this side, but Fire Giant's already down, so this is more about stripping the farm off the rest of the map, enjoying that gold they got from that tier 2 tower, and now they're sitting up 6,000.
But it's only going to get worse. The Gold Fury is already gone, pretty much. And that is just one of the benefits of having a Fafnir as well. And Big Man Tings, he still has that ultimate available. He hasn't even entered the Draconic form just yet. But whenever he does, you can kind of expect Valence to just purely turn and burn for the team fight.
And you saw how close the game was through about 19 minutes and 20 or so seconds. But it's only been like 2 minutes since that fight that happened in mid lane where things have gone really out of control in favor of Valent Squadron. It's certainly not at a point where Elevate can't fight back into it, but now it's Valent the ones who get to decide where the fights are happening. They're going to have control over that Fire Giant pit, and Elevate just got to try and stick around.
That's just one of the brutal aspects of competitive play, is that even the slightest mistake can make it incredibly difficult to crawl back into. And for Elevate, it certainly isn't completely out of their control just yet, but this is an uphill battle, and it's one that's going to be very difficult to get back into control of.
And they really got to keep an eye out for Fails. He's been going up with that through the Cosmos, landing in the back onto Death Panther, punishing him for trying to go up into those Tycho drums and putting out damage. So making sure they keep an eye on that and keeping Death Panther safe in the back line is going to be a big part of this. Looks like they're trying to maybe not put up too hard a defense on this tier 2 tower. How do you feel about that call?
For Elevate, they shouldn't really be trying to contest the T2 towers. I don't even fault the numbers for cleaning up that solo lane T1, just giving his team a little bit of gold. Plus, Elevate are probably going to be able to defend the Phoenixes well enough. And yeah, this is it. Valence are actually just going to back off since they don't have that Fire Giant buff around them anymore, or it's about to be wearing off, excuse me, in a couple of seconds here. And so because of that, they just don't feel comfortable with trying to secure a Phoenix siege here.
No numbers, just getting a little bit more that he can off the map. As you said, Fire Giant has fallen off. That'll be back up in about 50 seconds and very likely will be the focus for Valent Squadron. They already have some wards around that area, but now they got a chance to go back, buy everything back up, come out, and try and force back Elevate and have one more Fire Giant fight. But they got a team that can steal it.
There's just not a whole lot of damage because of how far behind Elevate is right now. They're having to rely so heavily on Cherio's ultimate. But the problem is following up after. That's still a fairly mobile squad from Valence, and even trying to pin down Lobster or Funballer, the two members without hard escapes, and thought that technically he has that line dash, but a Funballer in particular, it just outputs so much damage right now, and he's so tanky himself with the Shoguns and the Gladiator Shield that it's just difficult for Elevate to really do anything.
Especially with something like the Amir pick when it ends up behind can be in trouble. Cherio, though, going in on the Lobster, forces out the Aegis and the beads, so those won't be available for him. So Cherio getting a bit of a win for Valent Squad going into this next fight as Fails puts pressure on the no numbers, actually uses the ultimate.
But it's going to be the Portal Demon being aggressed on already, and Lobster's just there to help assist Funballer, and sure enough, Big Mad Ting showing up to the party as well, but no one from Elevate can really get anywhere close.
They're comfortable not going for the smaller objective. The one they don't want to give up here, it seems, is the call, is the Fire Giant. But they've got to make something happen off the play Cherio made for them in middle lane. Taking those important cooldowns away from Lobster has got to be the call for them to try and get him punished. They've got still about another 120 seconds to make it happen, but Valent Squadron are playing safe.
I wouldn't be too surprised to see Elevate forfeit this next Fire Giant and then just look to try and defend their Phoenixes. That's probably going to be their safest bet. However, if they let Valent have the Fire Giant again for free, I do feel as though even if Elevate try to defend their Phoenixes, they're probably screwed either way. It's kind of just one of those lose-lose situations.
Funballer already has that Fire Giant down half health. Ducky and Fails establishing a front line. Dardaz a little bit off the mark with that last freeze. He's not able to get anything out of it, but the Fire Giant was reset, and now it's back up. But once again, Funballer's ready to start chunking at it. Ducky is the one trying to keep everyone away. Dardaz running in, no numbers as well. The call is to drop the Fire Giant and go for the fight. Cheerio's here now, using that shield to reflect, but the final judgment brings him very low. Death Panner up into the air with his Taiko drums. Ducky takes down Cheerio. First kill goes in favor of Valence. Dardaz is also very low. Ducky cleans that kill up. 3 quick kills in favor of Valence Squadron. Now Elevate with only 2 members have to fall back. Tier 2 tower looks to be in trouble as Boss looks to be in trouble as well. It's a deicide, Taco.
Didn't even need the Fire Giant. Valence, they just wanted the fight instead. Big Man Ting still able to coerce his entire team, means that this T2 tower won't be standing for much longer. And sure enough, just like that, Elevate's hopes of trying to defend this Fire Giant and that remaining objective on the map is going to prove to be all but impossible. Because once this Fire Giant's gone, Elevate's going to have to try and defend not only the 5-man Fire Giant squad, but it is just such a massive lead right now for Valence.
And this is so important for Valence Squadron. They need all 3 points from this set. They got to win both games if they want a chance at going to Super Regional, just because of where they are right now, sitting at 5th place, and because Energy and Rival face off next. Either one of those would pass them in the standings if they don't get this 2-0. And getting the first game looking this strong, it's looking like they just might have a shot at it, but they got to clean up game 1 here first, and they're in a good spot to do it.
And they need to make sure to be consistent throughout the set if they want to find themselves with a 2-0 victory. But second game is still hard to determine how it's going to go, although this is certainly going to be a bit of a momentum boost if Valence are able to walk away with it. And it looks like they've set themselves up for the best case possible, which is getting the #1 game victory.
And that's a 16,000 gold lead in their favor now. 11-1 are the kills. We're only 27 minutes into the game, but it kind of feels like Valence have made it even faster, like with the way that they blew open that lead. It was slow to start the game off, but once they found an opening off that commitment from Dardaz in mid lane, they have not looked back since. Valence Squadron ready to push down this Phoenix.
This has been one of Ducky's better performances as well, I believe. It has certainly been a much more impactful game from him than what we've been accustomed to seeing out of this solo laner. And now Ducky taking up a couple of those tower shots, not even really concerned about it. Those Phoenix shots are doing almost nothing to him.
And it's really difficult for Dardaz to go in and create any kind of setup for Death Panner, who's already very low. He's going to have to go back and heal up in the fountain. Funballer ready to step up and start swinging into that Phoenix. Over the side, Cheerio tries to come in, but the return damage is too good. He'll have to back off. The wall to slow down some of the damage from Funballer, but it's not enough. Dardaz in a lot of trouble, and he's locked down as the Phoenix falls as well. Big Man Tings into the Dragon form. Final Judgment comes through and nicks Dardaz as well. Fails, lands on top, but no kills except for the Phoenix.
Darda's just a little bit too tanky for Valence to try and clean up, but they found what they were looking for at the end of it all. That was the left-hand side Phoenix. They still have a little bit more time as well, about a minute and a half if they want to keep pushing, and that seems to be the game plan, sure enough. Big Man Team's ready to coerce his team one more time before that Draconic form wears off.
And they still have Funballer and Ducky's ultimates for this engagement. I believe actually everyone on Elevate sitting on their ults too, so they didn't use any in that Phoenix defense, so this is going to look where they're going to fight. In blinks Cheerio, use the ultimate on the Funballer, who's isolated by the wall. 3-man freeze from Dardaz sets up Cheerio with the first kill of this fight. Fails looking to take him down though on the side. The Thorns are enough to slow down the DPS, so he can't keep fighting into it, and he's going to continue to chase and clean it up.
I thought Cherry was going to go away for a second, but the same story as what happened to No Numbers is the case instead. Dart is going with the Blink Freeze, pulls out the Purification Beads from Lobster, but this Phoenix is still getting completely chunked away at, and sure enough, Valen's going to be able to take that one out as well.
So even without Funballer, they have no problem cleaning up the mid Phoenix as well. 2 Phoenixes now down in favor of Valence Squadron. Elevate had a great initiation in that team fight, Taco. It looked like it was going to go their way. What happened?
It just got completely cracked wide open. Cheerio commits. He finds the cleanup crew, but unfortunately, Valence just had the immediate chase down factor come into play. Once Cheerio was that far ahead of his team and separated from them, it made it all too easy for Fails to go back around, chase him, take him out, and then, of course, only 3 members really left to try and help out on Elevates as No Numbers got caught out too.
They end up losing that engagement despite what looked like maybe a strong initiation to it. Both Phoenixes end up falling. Now Valent Squadron have the luxury of pushing in fire minions to split the focus of Elevate as they go to push down that last remaining Phoenix. Fire Giant, though, is about to fall off in a minute or so, or about to fall off right now, and will be respawning in a minute. So Valent Squadron will likely wait to pick that up before they attack again, and I don't know if Elevate can try and defend it.
The level disparity between Lobster and Death Panther has just been absolutely brutal. I mean, you saw how much damage Lobster was able to do onto Death Panther, and Death Panther has a Hide of the Urchin online. It's just that without any stacks, that health means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's rough that he has not been able to get that stacked up. Sitting 0-3-0, hasn't been a part of the 2 kills that Elevate have been able to secure so far in the game, so he is limiting the effectiveness of that Hide of the Urchin, as Valent Squadron now, with 25 seconds to go before the Fire Giant starter, establishing vision control and forcing out Elevate, who instead have to focus on trying to push up these minion waves as far as they can.
Valents are just hungry for this win, and for good reason. We've talked about it so many times already, but they need this set.
Yeah.
Without this set, it's Super Regionals. They might as well just kiss goodbye to it, and so getting one win here now is going to be the break or make it pretty much for Valence. And one more time, just going to take out that Fire Giant. 3rd time's the charm. Wouldn't be surprised to see an immediate Phoenix Siege right after.
We did see a good engagement from Elevate last game, so we know that they're capable of putting up some form of defense on these Phoenixes. Boss and Cheerio are going to clean up this tower first before they back, but Valent Squadron have to they clearly got to recognize that they're going to keep trying to push down the way before they can set up their defense.
They know that Elevate's Cheerio and Boss are going to be back in time, though, to try and help defend this Phoenix. The question is, will that make a difference, considering how far ahead Valence already is? Ducky looking to be the first member to try and venture into that Phoenix tower line, and sure enough, the walls from Darda is still enough to kind of bide out Elevate's time. Elevate
now trying to find a way to slow down the aggression from Valent Squadron at their Phoenix. This is the game. If they don't get game 1, they can kiss their chances goodbye, because they got to get the full set in onto Death Panther, the back, who already has to blink away. No numbers comes in with the rally here, but fails. It's through the Cosmos as well. Looking to come land to the back line. He does. Knock up 2 members, setting up the final judgment, which lands on the Boss. Fails, cleans up Cheerio. Phoenix still very strong at this point, but it's the team fight that's going heavily in favor of Valence.
And already Death Panther's falling as well. The Suns have come out from Boz, but not enough to make a difference. Fails, and Ducky just tanking up all that damage, but take it back. It actually isn't that much. Funballer eliminating Boz for final measure, and with the deicide, spells the Titan crashing down.
Valent Squadron able to pick up game 1 in a set where they can't afford to lose even once. Now they go